This is Corinne Bloom, and you're listening to Raw Conversations. How are y'all doing? I'm slightly worse for wear, coming out of a head cold and migraine, and just going to go gently today, which I think is actually a beautiful place to start from, because I want to talk about kind of tuning into the present energy that we're in and the transition that we're in and what we're moving away from and towards and into. So let's dive straight in. We've been living in the paradigm of fear for a very, very long time. And I think the most beautiful description that I've heard about fear itself is fear is the absence of love. When we're without the presence of love, we go into fear. And at its worst, fear can be used as a manipulation tactic because it's the one thing that can pull us so far away from who we are, from source, from our very soul. I don't believe that our soul is controllable, but if there were one thing that could manipulate it, it would be fear, because fear is very enticing. If we don't stay in our conscious awareness and grounded and really like in alignment with, and I don't want to say attached to or holding on to because of the connotations that they have, but like if we're not embodied in our soul and human self, in our sovereignty, in our authenticity, in our integrity, in our truth, in the very nature of who we are, which is love, it's really easy to get pulled off center, so to speak. And what I mean by center is that kind of truth point of who you truly are. And fear, like I said, is very enticing, and it can tailspin, it can snowball into something else very, 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 very quickly. And especially because it comes through the mind, and the mind is so impressionable, and the mind could just go, the subconscious goes, I believe what you say. And so if you hear it enough, it will take that as truth. And we're being shown that on mass scale right now, right? Of how easy it is to influence and manipulate. And I won't use some other words, but there are other words to describe what's been going on, and how it takes a lot of going against the societal grain to come back to like, wait a second, no, what is true? Where's center? Where's that 0 point energy? And to come back home to who we truly are. So I feel like the energy right now is very much in this transition. There's something that feels actually quite still about it. And yet what I think a lot of people are experiencing, and I'll include myself in this, of course, is it's unrelenting. Both the collective and the personal, the micro and the macro, are experiencing just almost this like too muchness. And even if you're not paying attention to the news, like I don't watch the news, I don't listen to the news. Even if you're not being bombarded by that every single day, or even if you're off social media, and so therefore you're not being bombarded by the hundreds, if not thousands of other people's thoughts, you can still feel it because we're all connected and we're all one. And as the veil thins, we can feel into that more. So there is a collective overwhelm as it is, right? With everything that is going on. And it doesn't matter which way you look at it. You could look at it politically, you could look at it energetically, you could look at it cosmologically, astrologically, all of these different angles and views in. They're all overwhelmed right now. There is just this like too muchness going on. And then on people's personal lives in the micro, there's not a single person that I know right now that isn't experiencing some kind of like, oh my God, this is unrelenting. It's unrelenting. And I can only speak for myself, but what I feel like, if everything has an opportunity or an invitation or a gift or a teaching or a lesson, I tend to look at life like this because I believe that we've come here to grow. And these are the questions or the perspectives through which we get to grow, right? Instead of becoming the victim and this is happening to me, it's like, how is this happening for me? And I just on a side note, that is such a useful thing to say. Like today, I found myself stuck behind 2 or 3 cars that were going so slow on my morning commute. And I just said, this is happening for me, not to me. This is happening for me. And it's like, oh, your whole nervous system gets to just relax. So that's actually a beautiful intention to have, which puts us into greater flow, which takes us out of fear and working against and fighting against and resisting against, and coming into a flow of life where we are held and we are taken care of and we are guided. So that's just a bit of a side note. But to try and come back to the point that I was making, this kind of unrelenting nature, what I feel like it's given me is like the external has become so loud that it's forced me to go in. And I found, even this last weekend, my daughter was sick last week. Then the moment she got better and I could finally take her to school, I started to feel unwell. And, I was in great discomfort, just like having to still drive and work, see clients, take care of my daughter, do the food shopping, doing the cooking. By the weekend, I was absolutely spent. I felt awful, like awful, awful on Saturday. And then, my cold got better, but the migraine came in and my cycle came on. But the difference this time is that I really truly felt like I was being held in a state of grace, like that I was so connected and held by the divine that, as what happened, whatever, 2, 3 weeks ago, that profoundly shifted things for me, when I had had that week of 3 meltdowns. And by the third one, I was like on my knees and crying. But I said, okay, God, this time I'm not letting you go. I'm holding on to you. And that has profoundly shifted things for me, profoundly. I have always had a very volatile relationship with sorry, I'm just checking my microphone, with the universe. And I think this is why I also said, like, no, I need to like go beyond the universe. The universe is actually too small for the kind of conversation that I want to have right now. Not to put the universe down, but it was like, no, I need to go straight to source. And in doing so, I've never felt so held in my life. And so normally my story would be that when I'm unwell and it's just like one thing is being piled on top of the other, and it does feel unrelenting and relentless and too much. Normally I go into, and then I feel alone and screw everything and I can't do it anymore and I don't have the strength. And, we can even go into why is this happening, which is never really that good of a question to ask because it is happening, right? And the why is it happening to me just puts us into victimhood and victim role. But this time I felt really crappy, and yet I felt just this warmth and this peace inside of me because I knew without a shadow of a doubt, with absolute faith and tangibility, like it was tangibly felt for me, of I'm not alone and I'm being held and I am so loved. And words can't even describe it because it's such a beautiful, not just sensation, but state of being. And so I think when we can connect to this source, and when I say this, and I interchange the name, source, God, creator, universe, existence, consciousness, love. I'm not coming from a biblical sense. I don't personally resonate with religion, but I absolutely believe in divine source, God, creation. And I said this to a client: if you doubt, ask for this presence to prove itself and to show itself, because that's what I did 3 weeks ago. I was in a place where I was like, screw you. If you exist, prove it. And within an hour it was proven. So the response is very quick right now, is what I'm finding. But I think when we can intrinsically feel and know that we are being held by something greater than us, this is part of the movement out of fear and into love, which is our natural state of being. And so if we look at it as fear is the absence of love, when you release fear, all there is love. and we are being held in the heart of love. And it's so beautiful. It's so exquisite. And I know with every fiber of my being, this is what we're moving towards. This is what this ascension, awakening, remembering is all about, is it's coming out of the illusion of fear. And it is an illusion. You know, it's false, it's fake, it's artificial, it's manipulated, it's not who you are, and it's not what God is. And the thing is that, you know, having been in what you could call the inversion, the matrix some people use, it's very clever, right? And so there is a God and there is a universe and there are things like karma. But if you pay attention, all of it comes with an edge of, oh, be careful, because if you do bad, God, you know, is some wrathful man in the clouds that's going to come and punish you. Or, you know, from a spiritual perspective, new age perspective, if you do something bad, karma is going to come around and nip you in the butt, you know? And I fundamentally disagree with both of them. Why? Because God doesn't punish. Source doesn't punish. We are here to learn and to grow. And so there may be lessons that are not easy to move through, but it's not karma that comes in and, oh, you did something bad in the past life, you know, and so you're going to be punished in this lifetime. No, 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 no. What did your soul choose to learn? How does it want to grow? And you know, from a soul perspective, from source perspective, there is no judgment, right? So there isn't like the, well, if you do this, you're good and you're bad, or you're right or you're wrong, or you should be praised or you should be punished. There is no duality. There is no judgment, right? And so many people in this lifetime are so afraid that either God is going to punish them or that karma is going to get them. Oh, I can't do that because karma. Listen to where that energy is coming from. Pay attention to it. It's coming from fear. It's derived from fear. Fear is the absence of love. And if it's absent of love, it is not coming from God's source creation. It is coming from the inversion. It is coming from manipulation. Anything that comes from fear is false. Anything and everything that comes from fear is false. And the thing is, it's easy to believe it in something that seems bigger than you and more powerful than you. Again, fear found its way to kind of come in and be like, you want to be free from it, but it's been so good at being like, yeah, but if you escape me, I'll get you and you're going to get in trouble. People wouldn't put up with this in a relationship, or if they do put up with it in a relationship, they would call it abuse, right? If you're with someone that is manipulative, that is controlling you through fear, that is, you know, properly abusing you through fear and manipulation, people would say, you need to get out of that. That's not healthy. That's not okay, right? So just as we would look at a micro version of that, why wouldn't we look at that in the macro, right? So we have been under the spell of fear. We have been, in essence, enslaved in that way. And we have forgotten, because fear will make you, it will propel you so much into survival mode that you will forget the magic that's in you, you know, like, you know, that when you go into deep states of fear, you can go into panic and anxiety and worry, and you're not in your logical mind, but actually beyond the logical mind, you're not in your body and you're not in your essence and you're not connected to your soul, because your soul knows there's nothing to fear because you're an infinite immortal being and there's no death. Yes, this body will die, but this is just an avatar. This is just a, you know, the suit that you get to wear to have this human experience, but it's not who you are. You are not a human with a soul. You are a soul that has a human to have this experience through. And I think this is like, if I tie this all in, when we can go back to this, like go back to the canvas that is holding all of this, right? It's your soul, and behind that, it's creator, source, God, whatever, spirit, whatever you want to name it. When you can open that lens to be this really beautiful, vast, wide lens, the little minutia of your life that says you need to be scared of this and this and then this, otherwise you're going to die. it's becomes so small and so meaningless because the vastness knows you are infinite and nothing can kill you and nothing can even torture or torment you, because what we're ultimately afraid of here and what fear brings us, it entraps us within is death. And that death is the end. I have seen some really funny memes that it goes like, what, you're telling me there's more? Like after this life, there's more. And they're kind of like with this like, ah. But the thing is, the more isn't more of this. The more is the beauty and the love and the connectivity and the oneness. And I don't say that from a hippy dippy Shangri-La, oh money pad me home, like everything is just, daisies and puppy dogs and rainbows. But what I'm speaking to is the love that we know is home, that is so rich with, I can only describe it as absolute divinity. I was listening to a beautiful interview with Belinda Womack, I think is how you say her name. And she was describing, because Emilio Ortiz, who's the host of the podcast, was like, why, he's having a hard time understanding why this level of fear that is so destructive. Why have we been in this? Was it designed? Was it created? Was it purposeful? Was it meant to be like this? And what's going on now? What is happening now? And she beautifully talks about how well, she channels this, but she's like, creator wanted to have the experience of what is the opposite of its natural state of being, which is love, right? So the natural state is love. And so the opposite would be fear. Fear is the absence of love. And in the beginning, it was interesting, right? There was a lot of growth that came through and out of it. But then what creator didn't recognize is that fear can multiply on itself. Like think about panic, she used as an example. When you can get into panic, it's like boom, 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 everything starts to happen and it tailspins. It snowballs into something that is just like, whoa, it makes me think of the images of people literally punching each other out for toilet paper when the beginning of 2020 happened. So it tailspinned this experiment of that which we are not, as Darius Wright would call this experiment, that which we are not. We are experimenting on that which we are not. So fear is not who we are, right? It has tailspun into something else, and what she so beautifully channeled was creator kind of heard the call of each soul that is in this human experience saying, I'm not learning from this anymore. And for me, this was such food for my soul because I've been in this reflection for years now, and especially this last year of like, I'm bored of this game. This we're not evolving anymore. This is just the same shit on repeat and nothing is changing and it's not benefiting us. And I didn't come down here for this. I also didn't come down just to be in hell. I came down to change it. I came down to be, as she described it, as the bridge into what I would say is walking back home, walking back into our natural state of being and creating an entirely different earth and what we're really meant to be in. And there's still growth that's possible in that state. I remember Richard Rudd talking about how we've been in this paradigm for a long time, and there has absolutely been growth through suffering, through the challenge, through the point of tension, through the duality. And it's enough now. We've learned all that we can learn. I mean, even in a personal level, I was like, you know what, the last couple of years, I was like, I've learned enough through suffering and struggle and surrendering to it and and it's brought me into the depths of my soul and the dark night of the soul. And I've gone into, the deepest, darkest places, and it's made me who I am. And I'm grateful for it. And that's as far as I can go with it. And so if we want to continue to evolve, we need to do it in a different way. And so what Richard Rudd was talking about is that we can also equally evolve through bliss. And people need to know this, because somebody had actually commented of like, around how, but yeah, but we need the challenge and the suffering for growth. We did. Yes, we did. And now we've outgrown that. And we don't need that anymore, because now it's just ridiculous. The amount of people that are being killed for just the stupidest of reasons, and the amount of righteousness that comes out of, well, these people deserve to live, but these people deserve to die because of a religious belief or a political opinion. It's absurd. It's absolute insanity. No one should be dying, you know? And the hypocrisy that comes out of, that, well, if you eat this, you're more holy than if you eat that. And just that itself, the fighting, the division, the inner war, and the energetic and psychological war that comes out of that is the absence of love. We're in the paradigm of fear, and fear creates hatred, and hatred creates violence, and violence creates hell. And I think a lot of people are kind of entrapped within a kind of hell, because they can't find the way out of fear. Fear has gripped them in. It's so enticing. And when it comes into your physicality and you literally fear everything, one of the biggest, how I said in the beginning that it's like we've been so removed from source. And when we get removed from source, it's easier to go into fear, because we feel like we're alone. That's how I felt. It didn't put me into fear. It put me into, like, I had to be this crazy lone warrior, that it's like I'm on my own and it's so hard, and I feel abandoned by God, and it's like, screw you kind of thing. But for some, it can bring us into fear. And so the disconnect from source has been done so sneakily and slyly. And one thing that creates such a portal and an access to our divinity and to the divine is nature. And I remember Zach Bush stating this, and he's like, go read the definition of nature in the dictionary, and it will say that which is not man. That which is not man and which is not man-made. That was the biggest severing from who we truly are, because we are nature, because nature is God. Nature is the divine. Earth is the divine. We are the divine. This was the beginning of the separation and of the duality, and that we're disconnected, and from being pulled away from home and being pulled away from love. And so fear can come in, and then it multiplies, and it's rampant, like a disease, like a virus, like a vermin, like a parasite, whatever you want to call it, right? So we're having to detox all of this crap. We're having to detox the fear. And it's my personal belief that it's not about like, it sounds funny, but it's not about vilifying the fear and being like, ew, get out, I reject you. And da, da, da. It's like, no, the alchemist is love. We need to transmute it. We don't need to get rid of it. And by transmuting it, it's like what I spoke about last week. Like, can I love this too? Whatever arises in you, and the work is going to be done on the inside, right? You want to change the world, it's happening on the inside. Like, of course, there are things and actions that you can take on the outside, but the real work, if you want to change the world and you're like, what can I do? I'm just one person. You change your inner world. Because also we've been again thwarted. Not that it's not interesting to explore the outer world and the universe, but it's like the babysitter that's like, look over here, ooh, distraction, look at how like beautiful and crazy and wow this is. And then the parents walk out the door and poof, like distraction to slide one thing out and slide another thing in, right? And it's dishonest. It's dishonest, because there's nothing wrong with saying, okay, look over here, but let's also be honest with what's back over here, and so that we can explore the outer world and the inner world. But everything in our society has been like, go out, 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 out. Everything is outside of you. Everything is outside of you. It's like, no. Everything is inside of you. You want to ascend. You want to go into a different dimension. You want to go into a different frequency. It's all inside of you. And, I've been hearing in my morning meditation for a while now, this voice, this telepathic voice that's like, you're so close. And what it is, what it feels like, and I think this weekend was a really good example of it for me, because, I was in such physical discomfort, like just awful physical discomfort, that because I felt so held by the divine, I just was left in this actually very beautiful, peaceful state. And in that state, it was like I could feel when I say that I'm lifting higher, I don't mean in some hierarchical structure. I look at it more like the rings of a tree trunk, that it's closer to home, and it's closer to wisdom. And I feel so at the cusp of that. And what that is, when you reach that state, it's coming out of this fear paradigm. It's coming out of the fighting against or the wanting to control. It's coming out of the left brain and the masculine that has been an overdrive. It's coming into this beautiful present moment that is walking us towards a beautiful unknown, where there isn't the clarity for it yet. The signs aren't even coming in yet, because it's asking us to just be here. Because when you're here and you're in your heart and you're trusting and you're in this divine faith, not biblical faith, but divine faith. And there's nothing wrong with that, but it's not how I don't resonate with that terminology. So I'm just presenting that. Take it or leave it. This probably doesn't even matter. That when you're in that kind of divine faith, there is this expansion that happens. And I know, I've been looking for home, and I'm wanting to call in my partner and community. And I know the feeling so well. And I think the so close is that when you pierce through that veil that we've been under, then there are going to be so many more opportunities, so many more possibilities, because you literally go into a different frequency band. And so many other things are going to open up when we're in that place. And I'm going to say this again, because I know I've said it before. It isn't by bypassing your humanity, it's by going into it and through it that we quote unquote ascend, right? The ascension for me is more of like an expansion, and it's an expansion into that beautiful vast canvas that is the backdrop for everything, for this entire experience beyond even just our human experience, but the whole kind of cosmic experiment that's going on right now. So for me, it's like expanding into the outer rings. And we are having to pierce the veil, and right now the veil is very mental, it's very psychological. And so this is why we have to really actively choose to not choose fear, but to choose love. Because I want you to ask yourself, how has it served you to choose fear in the past? Has it served you to go into anxiety and worry? It didn't serve me. It stressed me out, and that was my lesson last year. It's like, okay, you don't need to. I was thwarted into so much anxiety and fear because sometimes I wouldn't know where I'd be living in like 3 nights time, and I have a child, and so that really got my first chakra, like survival instinct, going. But when I learned to be like, okay, I don't know, and I can be safe in the not knowing, I don't have to go into fear and anxiety. I can just have epic trust and faith. That's always the moment where things would open up. And so I've really learned to trust that now. I've really learned to trust that even if maybe the fear comes in, I have a choice point. I have a choice in that moment. Do I want to run with the fear, or do I want to sit here in my being, in my body, in my heart, connected to source, connected to my higher self, and know that I am safe, know that I'm being held, know that I'm being guided, know that life is happening for me, not to me or against me. And that's like, being behind these slow cars today. Okay, it's happening for me, not to me. And it just alleviates, it's a relief. It takes away the stress and the fighting and the controlling and the wanting to know and the needing to know and the controlling that just makes us so fatigued. And the thing is, we're already fatigued right now. Our adrenals are shot. We're exhausted. The last 5 years have been unrelenting. There's that word again. And yet I can feel my peace when it's like, no, just sit and know that I'm held. And again, I can't tell you how amazing that feels, like how soothing that feels. And it feels so much more real than anything I've ever experienced before. People that have had near-death experiences or that can cross to the other side will always say that side is so much more real. This is the dream, right? So I experience that even though I'm not crossing to the other side. I experience that when I can really land within myself and let go of fear, when I'm not in the construct of fear. Everything heightens, and it's a far more real sense of reality because we're getting closer to truth. We're getting closer to source and home. Remember, fear is the illusion. The matrix is the illusion. The inversion is the illusion. Anything and everything that comes from fear is the illusion. It's not real. And the way that we change it or face it is by facing it. You don't scare me. You're an illusion. And you go, oh, Corinne, but I'm dealing with stuff that's really real. Like this is real and it's affecting my reality. Yes, but your perception changes reality. So if you perceive it differently, your reality will change. If you're no longer driven by the fear, manipulated by the fear, controlled by the fear, it will all look different. Might still be a challenge you have to get through, but you'll face it in such a different manner. You will perceive it and view it in such a different manner, and you will have different solutions that you couldn't see before when you were in fear. But that all of a sudden you'll be like, oh, this is what's possible. This is the way through and out, right? And hear my words, I said through and out, not just out, right? Like we're not circumventing, we're not bypassing, we're not pretending and neglecting and getting rid of. We're moving through it because that is how we alchemize it. And then poof, we don't need it anymore. Suppression is, I don't want to deal with this. And so I'm just going to pretend it's not there. And then it's always there. It's just underneath. And then that drives your behavior more and more as the years pass, right? Moving through it is like, I'm working with it. I'm facing it. I'm facing the beast and looking at it in the eyes and go, oh, you're just scared. You just forgot love. You forgot who you are. But by you remembering who you are, you melt it because love will always be the greater source, the greater power, right? If fear doesn't have a chance, it doesn't have a chance. And again, it's not to vilify it, but it's just to say, oh, you're scared. That's all you are. You're scared. You've forgotten home. You've lost your way from home. You've forgotten that you are love and that you are source and that you are God and that you are creation and that you are one and that you're not alone. Excuse me. That's what we're moving towards. It's that feeling that you are always and forever held. You are never alone. And just tuning into it right now, it's just so beautiful, and this is coming from someone that, even though I'm deeply spiritual, very much with my feet on the ground, I don't have my heads in the cloud. I can be very practical, but I've always deeply been spiritual since forever, since when I can remember. But I've had a very volatile relationship with the universe, with God, with source. And I think it's the first time in my life where I'm like, oh, I got it now. I got it. And this time I am not letting go. And it's not a holding on that creates dependency. It's like putting on your true skin. You're like, oh, right. Yes. Okay. This is really who I am. Because when you hear people say you are God, so many people, oh, yeah, I'm God, and they're like, bullshit. I don't have any power over anything. I can't create anything because we're still in the paradigm of fear, So, sorry, my throat. Like I told you, I'm not 100% over it. So give me a moment. So the invitation today, be very mindful in the most loving, gentle of ways. Are you choosing fear or are you choosing love? And do you feel held by life? Because if you don't, that's a really important place to begin, because I didn't always feel held by life. I've spent a lot of time angry because I feel like I was dropped and abandoned. And somehow through this experience, it's like sometimes we're really forced into it. It's loving. It's a loving force, but sometimes it's like sometimes it does have to get so bad that we really surrender, that we really go, okay, I can't control this. But then there's a choice point in that. I can either go, okay, I can't control this, and I go into apathy and like just despair and just, maybe you have to go through that. I went through that too. But at some point, and I was reading this, actually, I'm reading a sample of A Course in Miracles. I was just curious. It's actually very different than what I thought it was going to be. But at some point, there's a part of us that we reach this point that we go, there has to be a better way. There has to be something better than this. And it's that even tiny little thread that invites us to make a different choice. So for me, it was like, okay, God, this time I'm not going to let go of you. This time I'm going to hold on. That was a different choice point for me. It was a choice point, and I made a different choice. Instead of me disconnecting, I held on. And it profoundly changed my life. And for you, it might be different. That's okay. We all might have our own version and our own pathway to get there, but discover what that is for you. Notice the ways in which you disconnect yourself from home, from yourself, from your faith, whatever that means to you, from true connection to divine source. Because I believe even those of us that believe the least, I still think there's some inkling, little tiny little millimeter of curiosity that goes, there must be more. There must be something more than just this. There must be another way. Like, it can't just stay like this. The only constant in life is change. So it can't just be this, right? And then there has to be the curiosity and the willingness to go explore. And the willingness to stretch your mind, because fear has kept your mind very small and very rigid and very limited. It does not want you to explore and be curious, because if you explore and be curious, you will remember who you are and you'll be like, wow, I'm amazing. And then fear can't touch you anymore, and then they can't control you anymore. But consciousness, source, God, creator has gone like, okay, we've learned enough from this. There's no more growth. It's heard our cry, as Belinda beautifully said. And so now we're moving out of that. And how quick or slow we get there, not that it's a race or a competition, depends on our willingness to let go of the old paradigm, even if that means, you know what, you're going to let go of the reality that you've known up until this point. And it might be scary. But if you can trust that you are being guided into a beautiful unknown, and that beautiful unknown is a portal and a doorway into just like heaven on earth, really. I don't say that lightly. I'm not some frou-frou fluffy kind of person, right? But I'm feeling it. I'm actually tangibly, palpably feeling it. And I know it to be true. Before it was like, yeah, that's a nice idea. But I don't know. Sometimes like this 5D shit really gets on my nerves. But when you feel, without any label, when you feel the energy that we have access to, you would never want to go back. You would never want to go back to what we've been in. You would never choose fear, because fear is a kind of hell and it's keeping us imprisoned. We want liberation. If you want liberation, stop choosing fear. And it will take courage, but that's why we have a heart. Cœur, it comes from courage. And we will be guided. The support is all around us, especially when I do soul readings, I see it. I see it. I feel it. I hear it. It's there, and it's there for each and every one of us. No one gets left behind. Some just might take longer because they might be a bit too stubborn and are like, no, I'm holding on to what I know. Okay, fair enough. Might not happen in this lifetime, but I hope for all of us that it does, because we all deserve beauty, and we all deserve love, and we all deserve to be held, and to remember that we're good enough, and not just that we're good enough, that we're remarkable and that we're special. and to turn all the inversion and make it right side up again, and to return home to source and to beauty and to love and to what we're really here for. And then we can create beautiful things. We can still learn and grow and expand, but it'll be through beauty and connection and collaboration and community and working with nature and with animals, and it'll be divine. So the timing is up to us. And the timing will be dependent on how much we still want to continue to be in fear and how much we're willing to take the leap of faith into the beautiful unknown and choose love. So there it is. Something to ponder upon. As always, take it or leave it as feels right for you, and loving you from afar. Bye. You've been listening to Raw Conversations with Corinne Bloom. Thanks so much for showing up, listening in, and being a part of the conversation with me.